This summer, I worked for a social working company that specializes in old people. My job was to call a list of patients just to see how they were doing. And I'd receive responses such as, "Thank you so much for checking up on me. Yes, I'm taking my medications. Amani Sharif, what kind of name is that? Go back to Islam." For as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated with the elderly in a very humane, non-creepy way, especially centenarians, people who've lived to 100. While centenarians only consist of 0.02% of the US population, they are a vital demographic that deserves intense research and recognition, as they've achieved what many consider the main goals of the human race: to live as long and as healthily as possible, to witness and participate in the great triumphs and lessons of history, and to reproduce, but that's for another speech. So today, let's take a look at what we've learned through lifespan and longevity research before we examine the centenarians around the globe and finally realize the legacy they leave behind. Similar to McDonald's hamburgers, humans today last a lot longer than they used to. We all know that longevity is caused by both genetic and environmental factors, meaning much of how we choose to treat ourselves determines if we become the irritable and aching elderly or the limber and functioning elderly you see at Trader Joe's. According to the Mother Nature Network, centenarians have diets higher in fiber and minerals and lower in protein, fat, sodium, sugar, and calories than their shorter living counterparts, which is basically less of everything that tastes good. The result is an average of 1,400 calories a day, 600 less than the US Department of Agriculture suggests. However, health goes far beyond the purely physical, as numerous gerontologists, those who study the science of aging, assert that lifespan is largely determined by personality. The Albert Einstein College of Medicine assessed the personalities of 243 centenarians via a 98-point questionnaire and revealed a large majority demonstrated great optimism, extroversion, and gregariousness. The Harvard School of Public Health confirms that such personality traits often link to lower levels of stress hormones, inflammatory proteins, and blood pressure, thus greatly reducing risk of coronary heart disease and stroke, the major killers of the Western world, along with cancer. Not only are most centenarians optimistic, but they're largely women, with 82.8% of American centenarians being female. This majority holds true for almost every country in the world, with the largest demographic of centenarians oddly being women who have never married. Either this makes no sense or it makes perfect sense. The reason for this remains a key question for gerontologists, along with what is the maximum age a human could reach under perfect circumstances? To what extent do our genes determine our fate? And where exactly is the fountain of youth? We may never know the answers, but we can investigate the extraordinary circumstances occurring in our world today. Today, the US has the most centenarians in the world, with estimates as high as 72,000, and it's predicted they'll reach 1 million by 2050. Once a person does turn 100, it's customary to receive a happy 100th birthday letter sent by a government employee dubbed the Centenarian Fairy. This is nowhere as cool as in Ireland, where the government sends 2,540 euros to its citizens upon reaching their 100th year. In Japan, the country with the second most centenarians and the most per capita, the island of Okinawa is famed for having the longest life expectancy in the world, with women living an average of 87 years. It's even been dubbed the island where people forget to die. This trend is largely attributed to Japan's emphasis on care for the elderly, which is commonly expressed through moais, groups of companions that meet regularly for social support. Once a person does turn 100, it's customary to receive a certificate and silver cup from the Prime Minister. The diet contains ample soy and legumes, dark and leafy vegetables, and green tea. This is starkly different from Sardinia, Italy, another centenarian hotspot where the diet contains ample bread, cheese, pasta, and red wine. They even have a traditional toast, a Kent Anos, meaning, may you live to be 100 years. So what, you must be thinking? These people are either choking on nutritional shakes or making off-color remarks about minorities. How interesting can they really be? Well, if you're awake at all during history class, you'd know that a lot can happen in 100 years. And these wrinkled bags of bones have done and witnessed some pretty crazy things. Let's start with the oldest person to have ever lived on record. A French woman named Jeanne Calment, who lived from 1875 to 1997, totaling 122 years. This makes her a super centenarian, meaning she lived to at least 110 years. Ironically, she was a smoker for 100 years, ate over 2 pounds of chocolate a week, and drank plenty of wine. At 13, she met Vincent van Gogh, who she described as dirty, badly dressed, and disagreeable. Calment died of unknown causes, but left behind the memorable quotation, "I've never had but one wrinkle, and I'm sitting on it." There's also 103-year-old Rita Levi Montalcini, who was born in 1909. Despite her father's wishes for her to become a housewife, she went on to become a doctor and devoted her life to studying the nervous system. However, in 1938, she was put out of work due to laws barring Jews from professional careers. From there, she set up a makeshift laboratory in her bedroom, where she studied the growth of nerve fibers in chicken embryos. After decades of intense research, she made significant discoveries in the field of cellular biology, eventually winning her a Nobel Prize in physiology and medicine. From there, she became a senator and spent the rest of her life in politics before passing away in 2012. I often ask myself what it is exactly that fascinates me so much about this group of people. And I realized it was more than the adorable way they hobble around Costco as if the slightest breeze could knock them over, or the eccentric and out-of-date outfits they wear to Village Inn. I realized it was the promise of a time when missed deadlines and embarrassing speech flubs can be completely forgotten. When upsets such as not getting into a certain college or having a bleeding finger during a speech round can be completely forgotten and realized just how trivial they are. Centenarians carry the promise that no matter how terrible things may seem or how devastated we may find ourselves, we have the opportunity to carry on, year after year, eventually accomplishing the things we dreamed of and concluding adventures we'd never had anticipated. And after examining the science, global trends, and profound examples of centenarians, I hope you can appreciate them too.